Wellington, Neuseeland. Seit der Einführung der Covid-Maßnahmen und der berufsbezogenen Impfpflicht gab es immer wieder Proteste gegen die amtierende Labour-Regierung unter Jacinda Ardern. So auch wie hier im Februar diesen Jahres.
We're fighting for our basic human rights, and we are on the right side of this.
Die konsequente und teilweise auch brutale Niederschlagung der Proteste und die strenge Durchsetzung der Mandate spaltete nicht nur die Neuseeländer, sondern führte bei manchen Politikern sogar zum Bruch mit der eigenen Partei.
I resigned from the National Party last night, and I did that mainly because my values are not aligned with theirs at the moment, okay? So that's why I did that.
Einer dieser politischen Querulanten ist der Farmer und ehemalige Parlamentsabgeordnete Matt King aus Okyhau im äußersten Norden Neuseelands. Auf seiner 260 Hektar Ranch züchtet er vor allem Rinder für die Fleischproduktion. Seit 2011 war er Mitglied der National Party, aber mit der Einführung der Impfpflicht für bestimmte Berufsgruppen war für ihn eine rote Linie überschritten.
I was trying to get the National Party to oppose mandates, and they wouldn't do it. I tried for so many months to try and get them to change their tack and at least allow people the freedom of choice, which is fundamentally written into their I guess their values, principles. Individual freedom and choice is one of the lines, and they refused to do that. They said that they would go with the government on the vaccination and the mandates, and for me that was a bridge too far. I couldn't in all conscience continue on supporting the National Party if they would do that. So I went down to the protests in Wellington, the occupation on the Parliament grounds, and I decided that I wasn't going to rejoin my original party, and I formed Democracy NZ.
Im März 2022 gründete er eine Partei. Im Oktober bekam sie die offizielle Zulassung. Matt King hofft auf den Einzug ins Parlament im September 2023 und ist momentan in ganz Neuseeland unterwegs, um für sein Parteiprogramm zu werben. Ganz oben auf der Agenda die Korrektur der aus seiner Sicht verfehlten Corona-Politik der Ardern-Regierung.
Well, I think within a week and a half of our Prime Minister telling us that 80,000 people could die if we did nothing, that was thoroughly disproven. The modelling was found to be flawed, and instead of admitting that they had made a mistake and confessing it up and putting it right, they doubled down and continued on with the program, and they continue to this day to be pushing vaccinations and boosters, and it's wrong.
Aber welchen Grund sieht er für den weltweit fast identischen Ablauf dieses Programms? Wie lassen sich die frappierenden politischen Gemeinsamkeiten erklären?
I note that some of the world leaders that have gone hard line in the COVID strategy, including our own, seem to be graduates from the same school run by Klaus Schwab and co. So it seems to have been an organised and orchestrated event with Macron and others, and our Prime Minister following the same sort of rule book. And it's massively concerning.
Besorgniserregend findet er auch die ständigen Versuche des Establishments, oppositionelle Meinungen in die rechte Ecke zu drücken. Dieses auch aus Deutschland bekannte Phänomen hat sich offensichtlich in den letzten Jahren in vielen westlichen Demokratien verstärkt.
The language that they use to try and shut down debate is what they're using. You're considered an alt-right or a right-winger or a Nazi or a extremist they just use these labels, this language to try and shut down debate, and traditionally anyone that questions or comes from the conservative side gets thrown with that label, and it's actually quite effective because it does shut down debate and it stops people actually speaking out when they would.
Mittlerweile gibt es aber auch wieder neue Brennpunkte in Neuseeland. Der neueste Streich der Labour-Regierung ist ein Gesetzesentwurf zur Besteuerung der Treibhausemissionen in der Viehhaltung. Demnach sollen ab 2025 Emissionsabgaben auf die Ausdünstungen der Nutztiere erhoben werden können, um so dem Klimawandel entgegenzuwirken. Im Klartext:
A proposal that committed government and the agricultural sector to work together to develop a plan that reduces emissions and prices methane and nitrous oxide at farm level by 2025. Farm level pricing presents the best opportunity to meet our emissions targets. which is largely being backed by the Climate Commission and the government.
Diese Ankündigung von Premierministerin Ardern löste umgehend landesweite Proteste aus. Dieses klimapolitische Handeln erinnert durchaus an die Angriffe auf Schlüsselindustrien anderer Länder, wie zum Beispiel auf die deutsche Automobilindustrie. Sofern beschlossen, wäre auch Matt mit seiner Rinderzucht ab 2025 von dieser Regelung persönlich betroffen.
The government wants to tax the emissions from my animals, the burps and the farts of my animals. And they want to take 100% of the emissions out of these animals here and give me 10 to 20% credit for all this grass and all these trees. It's just unbelievable that they would tax us, the productive economy, on some model that we believe is not correct, it's not scientific.
Und genau darum geht es auch bei den aktuellen Treffen der Farmer, deren Existenzängste Matt im Zuge seiner Parteineugründung zugutekommen.
So the government tells us that the only tool in the toolbox at the present time is to drop production, right? And we are the most efficient producers of food in the world, lowest carbon footprint. So it makes sense that if we drop production, the slack gets picked up by another country who is less efficient than us, so overall emissions go up because they want to look good overseas and they want to lead the pack. And we can't afford to lead the pack, and we shouldn't be leading the pack. None of our trading partners are considering this. The US and Australia have already ruled it out. Do you think China's doing it? So we would be the only country that's looking at taxing our farmers, and that's madness. The result will be productive farmland going into pine trees. That is the result of this policy as it stands now. So be prepared for rural New Zealand to be a ghost town.
Es scheint so, als würden mit dem Vorwand hehrer Ziele dem Mittelstand die Lebensgrundlagen erschwert, wenn nicht sogar entzogen. Im ersten Schritt durch die Verschlechterung der Wirtschaft aufgrund der Corona-Maßnahmen und nun durch den politischen Konsens, dem Klimawandel mit allen Mitteln entgegenwirken zu müssen. Doch was steckt dahinter?
I think that the mainstream media, as a rule, are not giving us the facts. The average person has no idea. There's a lot of events around the world that have sinister reasons why they're happening. So I look at that and I see what happened with COVID, and now what's rearing its head again with climate change is that there seems to be something being orchestrated by overseas operators to try and create, I don't know, fear in people and anxiety and a false narrative. And I challenge everything. I push back on all of that sort of stuff. Yeah, and it's happening around the world. And I do think the deep state, I think that they are using the left and some of the left, the people involved in the left side of politics, to push these agendas. It's very obvious. There's a massive, I guess, struggle at the moment between good versus evil in the world. And I like to think that good people making good decisions will win in the end. And I call me an optimist, but I hope that that's the case. I think we're on the brink, potentially, of a nuclear war. And it scares me to think that the events that are happening over the next year or two could change our way of life or our planet for the worse or the better. And I hope that good men and women win in the end.